we're outside, and I remember dragging her from the door and throwing her on the neighbor's car. They live in apartments, so I just, whoever's car it was, that's where she got thrown, and we're fighting. And I was commended for that. I was like, they were happy that I did that. You know what I'm saying? And now looking back, I'm thinking, like, where were the parents that should have stepped in and said, what's going on? What are y'all doing? You shouldn't be drinking. You shouldn't be smoking. You shouldn't be fornicating. None of this stuff should be going on. Like, where were those parents? They were in the house doing the same things. Hey y'all, so I had did a video talking about a little bit about witchcraft in my own family. I can't remember where I stopped off, but I'm just gonna pick it back up right here. So when I was younger, I was raised by my grandmother and my mom's mom. And I remember when my dad's mom used to pick me up, my grandmother barely let my other grandmother come in the house. She always had to wait in the car, or she was just outside at the door. And she used to call her a witch. She used to say, the witch is here. And I never understood that. And I'm sorry, y'all, I am always smiling for the most part. So I don't think this stuff is funny, but some of it to me is, but at the same time, it's just like, this is just who I am. So anyway, she used to call my grandmother a witch. And people that knew my mom's mom knows that she was so mean. So that's what I took it as back then. Of course, as after she passed away and as I got older, I realized and learned so much about her on her story and her journey that allowed me to give her more sympathy and empathy with why she was so mean, like why life had turned her the way that it had. So anyway, nonetheless, I just chalked it up to, she's just mean. So I called my mom because I've been doing a lot of studying on witchcraft. I've been doing a lot of studying on certain kinds of witchcraft. And I remember my mom sharing a story with me about when she was pregnant with me and my dad's mom and my dad's sister picking her up. My mom was about 16, I believe. Picked her up, took her to a witchcraft shop while she was pregnant with me. And my mom said, my mom had told me this before, so I would call her for clarity because I'm like, explain this story to me again. So she says they pick her up, they take her to this witchcraft shop. When they get there, she's looking at the place from the outside and she already knew where she was at, what type of place she was at. So she told them, I'm going to just wait in the car. And they were like, no, come in, come in. So she gets out, she goes in, and she says she just took a few steps in and just turned around and walked back out and went and got in the car. So they stay in and they do whatever they're doing. She said when my grandmother comes out, she has this like look of disgust, like she's mad that she didn't come in. But either way, they get on down the road, they're leaving. My aunt has this onion that she is to be putting in a four-way stop, in the middle of a four-way stop. And my mom was like, I don't know what they're doing, what none of this means. I just know this is what they have going on. We're sitting in the car waiting at a four-way stop for someone to run this onion over. And so me and my mom are a lot alike. And it's kind of hard to keep our composure sometimes. So she was saying that she was kind of giggling about whatever was going on. So she was telling my dad while he's in jail, this one specific time he's in jail, and he's like, well, it's not working because you don't believe in it. And my mom is like, that's not my problem. Like, I'm not getting into any of that. So she also said, this is why my mom's mom calls my grandmother, my dad's mom, a witch, is because one day my dad's mom came over and she's in my mom's room and she asked her for a cup of water. My mom gives it to her. A couple of days, weeks, whatever go by, and my mom's mom is cleaning her room or looking for something, whatever. She was a nosy lady, so who knows what she was doing. But she finds this cup of water under my mom's bed, but the water has something in it. And she asked my mom, what is this? Why did you leave this under your bed? And so my mom says, oh no, I gave that to her when she was over here. That was a cup I gave her. So of course my grandmother is mad and she's like calling her a witch. She's not coming back in my house. That witch is not coming back in my house. So that's where a lot of that stemmed from. So, you know, I was telling my mom, I said, I remember when my dad, my mom had me, and then she got pregnant with my brother right after. So my dad, of course, must have came home. How he came home, I don't know what he even went to jail for the first time. I have no clue. They have my brother 11 months after me. He's premature, but either way, they have us back to back. And then my dad actually ended up going to prison for life. And then when that happened, my mom was young with 2 kids. She ended up giving us to our grandmother. So anyway, I was telling my mom that I remember a time when my grandmother picked me up to go see my dad. And I believe I was like maybe between 10 and 12. And she takes me to one of these places after we go see my dad in prison. And I didn't know what it was. Unlike my mother, when we pulled up, I didn't know what it was. But I do know that when we went inside, there were like statues and now I know idols and altars and all this stuff all over. Like there was a Virgin Mary. There were black statues. Looked like, now I know, like Haitian voodoo and all this other stuff, right? I know it now. I didn't know what it was then. So when I go in there with her, she's like, come with me in the back. All I know is I see all this stuff up here and back there is dark. I don't know what's back there. And I trusted my grandmother because I loved her. I trusted her. She didn't give me a reason not to trust her, but I knew then that it wasn't right or something was wrong about that place. And I'm telling her, no, I'm not going back there. I'll stay right here for you. I mean, wait for you. And so when she comes out, she looked like she was disappointed, but she never said anything. She never disrespected me or treated me bad or anything like that. But I do know that it felt like she was disappointed with me. And that's the same thing my mom said. She was like a look of disgust, right? So I didn't know any of that was going on. I didn't know anything about that. I just know that what I said in a previous video, that when I was trying to record this, I ended up having to record a couple of videos because some of the verbiage that I used, I didn't want these videos to get flagged. But what I was saying was, when I looked at my grandmothers, both of them, my mom's mom she was not super mean to me because I was the first grandchild, right? And she loved me, she spoiled me. And because I didn't have my parents. So she pretty much gave me whatever I wanted, let me do whatever I wanted as I'm growing up. And her main thing was just finish high school. That's what she used to tell me, just finish high school. So, but with her, things were limited. When I went with my dad's mom, it was fun. Like most of the time when I went with my dad's mom, my cousins were living there. My aunt was living there. So her house was deemed as the fun house. Me and my brother, from the age of maybe 10 to 14, 15, if my grandmother couldn't pick us up, we would ride the bus. We get out of school on Friday, and we would ride the bus from North Houston. I'm going to say like Acres Home area. We used to ride the bus from there to Greenspoint, like almost every weekend that we could. And we would stay at my grandmother's house all weekend long. When we would go home, she would be giving us, money or whatever. But while we were there, most of the time it was like the fun house. She would be smoking weed in her room. She didn't care what we were doing. We could drink, we could smoke, we can do whatever. Now, my brother, he didn't get into any of that. And I wasn't really into it either, but I did, at the time, try some things. I was young. Everybody else was doing it. Like I said, my cousins were there. They were a little bit older than me. And, these things I'm trying. And of course, every weekend we're like, that's the fun house. Let's go over there. And I'm realizing like where strongholds, where generational curses and stuff come from. And now, like, talking back to my mom and realizing these things, I'm thinking, I'm like, this is the generational curse. We don't even know sometimes the things that we're battling right now were opened up from our parents or our grandparents, or like we don't know where these things come from. And some people say go to therapy, like when you're going through this stuff and trying to make a change in your life and break all these cycles or whatever, go to therapy and in therapy, they have you run back through the past. Some therapists have you run back through your past and wondering why you're like this in relationships and why you're this type of way and all these things, right? And I'm not against any of that. But what I'm saying is, like, really, when I started following God, when I started following Jesus, is when I started really breaking free from these chains and things being exposed to me. Like, this is where this is coming from. This is where this is coming from. Like, so many things, because I was saying that I remember a time going to my grandmother's house and my brother, we were like all partying outside. Teenage kids just outside hanging out. And my brother comes home with this girl and she's only there because of him. So it's his fault, right? But that's not how my teenage mind took it. He brings the girl over and they're in the restroom doing whatever they're doing. So I'm mad because now you're disrespecting my grandmother and her house is how I seen it. So when they came out of the restroom, we're outside and I remember dragging her from the door and throwing her on the neighbor's car. They live in apartments. So whoever's car it was, that's where she got thrown and we're fighting. And I was commended for that. I was like, they were happy that I did that. You know what I'm saying? And now looking back, I'm thinking, like, where were the parents that should have stepped in and said, what's going on? What are y'all doing? You shouldn't be drinking. You shouldn't be smoking. You shouldn't be fornicating. None of this stuff should be going on. Like, where were those parents? They were in the house doing the same things, allowing these things, condoning these things, feeding these things. So it's crazy just looking back. Like, I became a teen mom, and I'm not blaming anyone for that, right? Because those were decisions that I made. However, had I not been exposed to certain things, I may have not been a teen mother. So that's just how the cycle repeats itself. Like, my goodness, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I say this almost in every video now. The more I learn, the more I realize how much I do not know. The more I realize how much healing that I really needed. When people say heal, 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 do this, do that. And not even just healing, identifying the problem and stopping, like intentionally stopping, saying this stops with me. This is not going on to my kids. If I was my mother and my mom didn't know half of that stuff was going on, but at the same time, she wasn't raising me. So it was like, had you had us, then that may have been prevented but even still, my grandmother had me and she doesn't condone any of that. My mother's mother, but she didn't know what was going on at my other grandmother's house. So she just thinking that's where I'm going for the weekend. So I can't blame anyone else, but I'll say, like, at one point in time, we have to realize that it has to stop somewhere. Like, my kids, my oldest son is 20, my daughter's 19, and my youngest son is 13. There is no way on God's green earth that I am condoning or allowing not even an ounce of what was going on in my grandmother's house. And I don't the crazy part is I don't write out just blame her either, because I don't know what she was exposed to. And my dad was in prison. All of my grandmother's kids were in jail except one. And he ended up, I'm not even going to go there, but all of her kids, grandkids, for the most part, the boys, in prison, in and out of jail, back and forth, one after another, after another, after another. And it's exhausting when you just sit and think about all of this stuff and knowing where it's coming from and where some of this behavior, where some of these decisions are coming from. It's exhausting to even think about, but I'm grateful nonetheless that I am learning this stuff, because that's how you break the generational curse. That's how you break the cycles. Somebody has to intentionally say, this is no longer happening going forward. Not my kids, not my grandkids, no one else. And life is not easy when you decide to do that, because it's easy to just do those, like all this stuff, to be nonchalant, to drink, to smoke, to, you got a problem, get high. You know, it's easier to do that, to cope, and then still have the problems that you're dealing with, of course. But sometimes it seems like that's easier when you're sober minded, when you're attacking things head on, when you're learning things, when you're overcoming things. when you're breaking those cycles, life is harder, but the reward for that is so much more on the back end. I wouldn't trade anything that I've done or been through to be able to save my kids from any of that. I would not have, because I'm able to do that, I would not trade anything that I've done or gone through. So I don't regret anything, and I have definitely forgiven everyone, my mom, my dad, grandparents, anyone that had any part, spouses, excuse me, anyone that had any part in any type of trauma, drama, anything that has just got me off the path or contributed to it. I have forgiven everyone, because the same way that I want to be forgiven by God, I know that I have to forgive. That is the main thing. And it's so, I think that's the hardest thing for people to grasp is forgiving other people for the things they do to you, for the things they contribute to doing to you, all these things. But once I'm able to release all those things, I feel like peace. When God says, I'll give you a peace that surpasses all understanding, that I have been feeling. So, and I have witnessed. But anyway, I just wanted to, do this video piggybacking off of one of the other videos I did. These may drop out of order because I have so many videos that I just, started recording. And of course, the other videos that just kind of came out of nowhere that I didn't even expect to come up. But I'm sharing so much of my life, not as tea, not as just running to a camera and saying, oh, it's story time. There is revelation in this, hopefully for someone. Someone said to me that you rather learn through revelation instead of tribulation, but you're going to learn a lesson out of both. And realizing that I've learned so many lessons out of tribulation, so many. I'm tired. Frankly, I am tired of learning the lesson the hard way. I'd rather learn it through revelation. Please, speak to me, Lord, through revelation or through somebody else's life or somebody else's mistake. And that's not me saying I'd rather someone else go through it. I'm just saying if I can learn from somebody else, I definitely want to do that. If I can teach someone something through my life, I'd rather be able to do that. We're all in this thing together, whether we know it or believe it or not, So that's the reason why I'm doing these videos, along with, this is my spiritual journey. This is my growth. This is what I'm learning. There's so many other people struggling on this journey to figure out their way. And I just hope that all these videos are encouraging to someone, that helps somebody else. Again, letting you know I've been on all sides. So if God can save me, if God loves me, if he's still chosen me, covering me, giving me grace and mercy, he can do the same for you. That's the point of all of this. So again, I hope this resonates with someone. I hope it helps someone. Like the video, y'all. Comment on the video. Have you battled with any of these things? What are some things you're overcoming? What are some things that you needed to forgive so that you could move on? Have you forgiven? Or are you having a problem with forgiveness? Whatever you want to share, I'm sharing with y'all. Share with me, y'all. Drop a comment and make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be dropping more and more videos. At first, I was doing this every Wednesday, and now I just feel like every Wednesday I'm going to drop a video. But for the most part, if something comes up, I'm just going to drop a video. It just is what it is. So anyway, y'all, until the next video, I appreciate y'all for staying to the end. Y'all be blessed. Bye, y'all.